Over the course of many millennia, humanity has made truly astounding discoveries and created amazing technologies that were not only centuries ahead of their time, but were also sometimes mysteriously lost in the depths of history. Like precious artifacts lost in the sands of time, their true purpose, manufacturing methods, and even their very existence becoming an insoluble riddle for subsequent generations. These losses of knowledge are not just unfortunate gaps in the historical record or accidental omissions. They are a vivid testimony to the fragility of human progress, which, contrary to our expectations, does not always move in a straight upward line. Modern society, living in an era of rapid technological development, often tends to look at ancient civilizations with a sense of superiority, considering them primitive, limiting their achievements to simple tools, rudimentary buildings, and primitive social structures. We instinctively think that progress is always a linear and steady movement forward, a constant accumulation of knowledge, continuous improvement, and refinement of technology. However, a close look at human history shows that this is a profound misconception. Many of the engineering, chemical, metallurgical, construction, astronomical, and even biological achievements of our ancestors were so complex, unique, and astonishing that we still cannot fully understand their methods, let alone reproduce them with the same efficiency, durability, scale, or precision demonstrated by the surviving examples. This lost knowledge is not just a curiosity of history or a scientific enigma. It is a vivid testimony to the incredible intelligence, deep, sometimes intuitive, understanding of the laws of nature and the amazing ingenuity of our ancestors, who, it would seem, did not possess the same advanced scientific instruments or the same vast amount of theoretical knowledge that we have today. Their technologies, if they had not been irretrievably forgotten or perhaps deliberately hidden from posterity, could have changed our world, directing the development of human civilization along a completely different, perhaps more sustainable, harmonious, or even fantastic path than the one we are following now. These forgotten achievements challenge our modern hubris and force us to reflect on the cyclical nature of progress, the losses and gains in the endless cycle of human ingenuity, and how easily entire tracts of accumulated knowledge that could have been of great benefit in the future can be lost. Perhaps the most valuable lesson we can learn from studying these forgotten technologies is that any knowledge that is not transmitted and cultivated is doomed to be forgotten, no matter how valuable it may be. One of the most amazing, still not fully understood, and in fact unique forgotten technologies is Roman concrete, which they called opus caementicium, opus cementitium, which can be literally translated as cement work or cement structure. This material was the cornerstone of the Roman engineering revolution, which allowed them to build structures of an unprecedented scale and durability, many of which stand to this day, having survived 2,000 years of history, natural disasters and wars, which is unprecedented for building materials. Unlike modern Portland cement, which, having been invented only at the beginning of the 19th century, begins to deteriorate over time under the influence of moisture, temperature changes, and chemical reactions. For example, sulfate corrosion and the reaction of alkali with silica, forming microcracks and gradually crumbling Roman concrete, used to build such grandiose and still-standing structures as the majestic Pantheon with its huge unreinforced concrete dome with a diameter of more than 43 meters and unprecedented lightness, the colossal Colosseum, numerous long aqueducts that delivered water to the cities, as well as bridges, temples, baths, virtuoso sewerage systems, roads, dams, majestic domes and port facilities did not weaken over the years, but on the contrary, only grew stronger, becoming more and more monolithic, durable and resistant to external influences. Particularly striking other maritime structures, the ancient breakwaters, piers and ports built by the Romans along the Mediterranean coast, such as the port facilities at Caesarea or the artificial harbors at Ostia. 2,000 years after their construction, they still stand in the water, withstanding the constant impact of waves, tides, and aggressive salty environments, while ordinary modern concrete would disintegrate in the same conditions within a few decades, turning into a loose mass unsuitable for use. This demonstrates a fundamental difference in the chemical and structural properties between ancient and modern materials, and that the Romans had a deep empirical knowledge that is superior to moderns in some respects. Historical sources, such as Vitruvius's 10 books on architecture, provide some general guidelines for the use of materials, but do not reveal the full chemical secrets. The secret of such incredible durability, unique chemical activity, and self-healing ability lies in the special composition and complex chemical reactions that took place inside the material over the centuries. The Romans used quicklime, calcium oxide, CaO, as the main binder and a special type of volcanic ash, which they called pulvis putillanus, after the place where it was mined in the Pozzuoli area near Naples, as well as ash from other volcanic regions, such as near Vesuvius. This volcanic ash, rich in silicon dioxide, silica, and aluminum oxides, had unique pozzolanic properties, the ability to form stable, strong compounds when reacting with lime and water, even without the presence of hydraulic additives. The mixture of lime, this volcanic ash, water, and various local fillers, such as volcanic rock, tuff, brick chips, pumice, crushed stone, or ceramic fragments, entered into a complex pozzolanic reaction. This reaction led to the formation of unique crystalline minerals such as calcium aluminum silicate hydrates, as well as tobermarite and philipsite. These minerals, with their unique crystalline structure, were formed not only during the initial hardening, but continued to grow, crystallize, and compact for hundreds and even thousands of years after the initial setting of the concrete, filling the micropores and making the material increasingly dense, strong, and resistant to external influences. This process, in fact, represents a kind of calcification or mineralization of concrete over time, which is fundamentally different from the degradation of modern cement. What is particularly surprising is that this process of self-healing and strengthening was activated precisely by contact with seawater, which is one of the most aggressive and corrosive environments for modern concrete due to sulfates and chlorides. Moreover, evidence has been found that the Romans could use the so-called hot mixing of lime, i.e. adding it in quicklime form directly during the preparation of the mortar. This led to a local increase in temperature inside the mixture, up to 200 degrees Celsius, which accelerated chemical reactions, facilitated the rapid formation of strong bonds, and the formation of miniature but uniformly distributed lime inclusions, concretions or clasts, in concrete. These inclusions served as a kind of self-healing agents. When a microcrack appeared in the concrete, water penetrating into it reacted with these lime particles. This reaction produced calcium hydroxide, which then reacted with carbon dioxide from the air or dissolved in water to form insoluble calcium carbonate, limestone, which filled the crack, literally healing the damage and providing unprecedented durability, strength, and self-healing properties. Some researchers even believe that the Romans deeply understood the principle of the chemical activity of pozzolans and purposefully exploited this property, passing on knowledge from generation to generation through guilds of craftsmen who strictly guarded their secrets. Whoa! The economic and social impact of Roman concrete was enormous. It allowed Rome to become an architectural giant, building an infrastructure that supported the empire for centuries. New forms of architecture emerged, such as enormous domes, vaults, and arches that would have been impossible to build on such a scale with stone or brick. It also reduced the cost of construction, as concrete was cheaper and quicker to produce than other materials. The use of concrete allowed cities to be rebuilt more quickly after fires or wars, which was critical to maintaining the stability of the empire. If we could fully unlock the secrets and scale up this ancient Roman concrete technology, it would revolutionize the 21st century construction industry. We could build buildings, bridges, dams, levees, roads, tunnels, seaports, and coastal structures that would last not decades but millennia, while dramatically reducing the enormous costs of repair, maintenance, and refurbishment, and dramatically reducing the carbon footprint of modern cement production, which is one of the world's largest emitters of greenhouse gases, about 8% of all global carbon dioxide emissions, comparable to or greater than the global aviation and shipping industries combined. This would change the very approach to infrastructure planning, allowing for the creation of truly eternal structures that are resistant to climate change, seismic activity, and natural disasters, and would open up entirely new horizons in architecture, engineering, and ecology, contributing to a more sustainable development of civilization and reducing the need for constant infrastructure renewal. Perhaps one day we will again learn to build for centuries, as the Romans did, using the wisdom of our ancestors to solve modern problems of sustainability and durability. It could also reduce dependence on expensive fossil resources needed to produce modern cement. The second was Greek fire, one of the most terrible, effective, and deeply secret weapons of its time, which provided the Byzantine Empire with undisputed supremacy at sea for several centuries, from the 7th century to the 12th century AD. It was a unique flammable composition that could not be extinguished by water. On the contrary, water only intensified its combustion, spreading the flames over the surface of the water and turning sea battles into a real hell for the enemies, their wooden ships into flaming torches, and the crews into victims of terrible, unbearable burns, from which there was no salvation either on land or at sea, since the fire stuck to bodies and tissues, and it could only be extinguished with sand, vinegar, strong urine, or large amounts of earth, as some historical sources say. Its effect was so devastating and demoralizing that it brought panic and terror to the Arab, Russian, and Bulgarian fleets that repeatedly attempted to besiege Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium, one of the greatest fortresses of the Middle Ages, located at the crossroads of trade routes. Greek fire played a key role in preserving the Byzantine Empire from numerous naval invasions that could have led to its early downfall and changed the entire course of European history, perhaps even the fate of Christendom. For example, in Dos, Greek fire helped the Byzantines repel the first Arab siege of Constantinople, which lasted 4 years, and in the second, thus saving Europe from an early Islamic conquest that might have spread much further west. It was so important that the Byzantines considered it heavenly fire, given to them by God to protect their city and empire. The exact recipe for Greek fire was strictly classified and kept a closely guarded secret by the Byzantine government and a small circle of dedicated specialists, which ultimately led to its irretrievable loss. Legends say that the formula was known only to the emperor and perhaps only a few trusted people, including the chief chemist or engineer, whose name is often associated with Callinicus of Heliopolis, a Syrian engineer who is said to have passed the secret on to the Byzantines around. However, there are other theories suggesting that it may have been developed in Byzantium itself. Byzantine emperors such as Constantine IV Pogonatus and Leo III, the Isaurian, strictly forbade the disclosure of the secret of liquid fire under pain of death, considering it a divine gift intended to protect the empire and attributing its miraculous origin. This secrecy was so effective that even after the fall of the Byzantine Empire and the death of the last guardians of knowledge, the recipe was lost forever, leaving behind only fragmentary descriptions, evidence of its use, and numerous attempts at reconstruction based on guesswork. Among the most likely suspected ingredients are crude oil, or naphtha, obtained from the oil-rich regions of the Middle East, quicklime, sulfur, saltpeter, potassium nitrate, resin, phosphorus, as well as various plant resins, such as pine resin, animal fat, tree resin, and even quicklime, which when in contact with water releases a large amount of heat, facilitating ignition and intensifying combustion. The mixture likely contained several flammable substances and components that either reacted with water to release heat and support combustion. For example, quicklime, when in contact with water, becomes very hot, which could ignite other components and also create steam, scattering the burning mixture, or created a spontaneous combustion effect when exposed to air after release. Modern research, based on the study of ancient texts and chemical analysis of possible components, suggests that the key component may have been crude oil mixed with sulfur and lime, which created a pyrophoric effect, spontaneous combustion in air, and a high combustion temperature, making it virtually impossible to extinguish on wooden ships. Some theories even include phosphorus, which could spontaneously ignite when exposed to air, or its compounds, which at that time could be obtained from organic materials such as bones. The delivery systems for Greek fire were also sophisticated and high-tech for their time, making it not just a dangerous mixture, but a fully fledged military complex capable of changing the course of a battle. It was delivered under pressure through special bronze siphons, called siphonophores or chirosiphons, hand siphons, mounted on the bows of Byzantine ships, called dromons, fast warships, ejecting a powerful thick stream of flaming liquid onto enemy vessels, much like a modern flamethrower. These siphons may have had a sophisticated pressure-building mechanism, perhaps using pumps or compressed air created by a piston pump or large bellows, as well as a heating system to keep the mixture in a liquid state. This allowed the enemy to be attacked at a considerable distance without engaging in close boarding combat and literally burn their fleet, causing panic and demoralization. Eyewitnesses described it as liquid fire that flowed over the waves and was indomitable, leaving behind thick black smoke and spreading a pungent smell, causing terror in enemies. In addition, Greek fire could be used in the form of grenades, clay or glass vessels filled with an incendiary mixture, which were thrown manually or with the help of catapults at enemy fortifications and ships, as well as incendiary arrows wrapped in cloth soaked in the mixture. There are also references to hand siphons, possibly smaller portable flamethrowers for use on land, allowing the technology to be used in a variety of combat situations. The collapse of the Byzantine Empire, especially after the Fourth Crusade in Degar, when Constantinople was sacked, led to the loss of much valuable knowledge and technology, including the secret of Greek fire. The masters who kept the secret may have perished, and their knowledge was not systematized and passed on in full. Modern attempts to replicate Greek fire have encountered many difficulties. Even with all the supposed ingredients, it is impossible to achieve the same uncontrollable, stable, and waterproof burning as described by ancient sources. Fortunately, this technology remains a secret of the past, since its reappearance in the modern world could have catastrophic consequences, creating a weapon of mass destruction that would be extremely difficult to control and extinguish, posing a huge threat to civilians and the environment. This is one of the rare cases where a lost technology may have brought more benefit to humanity than harm, remaining only a historical curiosity and a legend, reminding us of the power of ancient inventions. The technology flourished in the Middle East and South Asia for many centuries, reaching its peak between the 9th and 17th centuries CE, and then, for reasons still not fully understood, was lost to legend, scattered accounts, and numerous attempts at reconstruction that continue to this day. A true Damascus blade was said to be able to easily cut through a silk scarf thrown on it, or a fine feather dropped on the blade and yet remain flexible enough to bend to a right angle or even almost curl into a ring without breaking, deforming, or losing its edge, something that was completely unthinkable for other types of steel of the time, such as European or Chinese steel. European knights dreamed of Damascus blades, which were worth their weight in gold and were a symbol of status, military superiority, and mystical power. Legends described how Damascus blades could cut through chainmail and stones without dulling, and their edges made a distinctive ringing sound that distinguished them from ordinary swords. The secret of these unique properties was in a special process of forging and heat treatment of the so-called woots, crucible steel, which was produced mainly in India and Sri Lanka, earlier called Ceylon. Woots was a high-carbon steel, with a carbon content of 1 to 2.1%, and sometimes even higher, up to 2.2%, which was smelted in special sealed clay crucibles under low oxygen conditions, at very high temperatures, about 1,200 degrees Celsius, for a long time, several days, which led to the formation of a unique, coarse-grained crystalline structure with uniformly distributed carbides, especially cementite, which formed in the form of thin stripes or fibers. It is believed that ancient craftsmen could also use organic additives, such as leaves of certain plants, bark, sawdust, nutshells, or even animal horns, that when burned during forging, added certain trace elements, such as vanadium, chromium, manganese, nickel, cobalt, to the steel and contributed to the formation of a unique nanostructure. These elements, present in the original ore or added during the process, played a key role in the formation of cementite nanotubes and other carbide structures that were discovered in Damascus steel samples using modern electron microscopes and atomic force microscopes, confirming the existence of nanotechnology in ancient times, long before its official discovery. These complex and lengthy processes resulted in the formation of unique nanostructures in the steel, nanotubes of cementite, iron carbide, and other carbide formations, located in a matrix of softer but flexible ferrite. These nanostructures, as well as the overall layered composition, imparted exceptional hardness, strength, and sharpness to the cutting edge, while the surrounding, more ductile metal structure maintained overall flexibility and impact toughness, preventing brittleness and making the blade incredibly resistant to fracture even under strong impacts and twisting. The wavy pattern on the steel surface, the so-called moire, arose due to differences in the chemical composition and crystalline structure of the layers, which appeared after the final etching of the blade with weak acids, enhancing the aesthetic value of the weapon and confirming its authenticity. The pattern was not just a decorative element, but an indicator of the quality of the steel. The reasons for the disappearance of Damascus steel technology remain the subject of lively scholarly debate. It could have been the loss of access to quality woods from India, possibly due to changes in trade routes, depletion of deposits, political conflicts such as the Mongol conquests, or the cessation of production in India itself in the 18th century, perhaps due to a decline in demand or changes in smelting technology. Other factors could have included changes in forging techniques, the loss of craft secrets due to wars, social upheavals, and the death of masters who had not had time to fully pass on their knowledge to apprentices, or even a change in demand for weapons with the advent of more effective firearms, which made the expensive and labor-intensive production of Damascus blades unprofitable. It is quite possible that it was a combination of all these factors. Modern attempts to reproduce Damascus steel include the use of powder metallurgy, special alloys, and complex heat treatment methods, but it has not yet been possible to completely reproduce the true quality and all the unique properties of the original Damascus steel. Although similar in appearance but not in all characteristics, materials such as patterned steel have been created. If we could fully master this technology, it could revolutionize not only the production of cutting tools, bladed weapons and jewelry, but also the creation of body armor, wear-resistant machine parts for various industries, from aviation to medicine, precision surgical instruments, and other products that require exceptional strength, hardness, flexibility, and durability under extreme loads and temperatures. This would be a real step forward in materials science, opening the door to the creation of entirely new classes of materials with improved properties. The fourth was the Inca road system, known as the Chapac Nian, which means Great Road, or Road of the Lord, in Quechua, a truly astonishing feat of engineering, organization, and logistics that surpasses many modern road networks in its length, complexity, quality, and adaptability to extreme mountain terrain and climates. This gigantic network, estimated at between 30 and 60,000 kilometers, connected the most remote corners of the vast Inca Empire, the Tawantinsuyu, 4 cardinal directions, or 4 united provinces. It stretched from what is now southern Colombia, through Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, to central Chile and northwestern Argentina, passing through a wide variety of landscapes, from arid coastal deserts and humid tropical jungles to snow-capped high mountain passes located at altitudes of up to 5,000 meters above sea level. What makes this achievement even more astonishing is that all of this was built without the use of the wheel. The Incas knew it, but did not use it for transport, relying mainly on pedestrians and llamas, since the wheel was ineffective on steep mountain slopes and uneven terrain. Draft animals, horses or oxen, to transport heavy loads, and without sophisticated metal tools, relying mainly on stone and bronze tools and a huge labor force organized by the state through the meter system. Compulsory public works, a kind of labor service that was part of their complex social and economic system. Inca engineers built these roads with incredible precision, ingenuity, and a keen awareness of local conditions, using local materials and sophisticated stone-laying techniques that provided remarkable resistance to earthquakes, landslides, floods, and the harsh weather conditions common to the Andean region. In mountainous areas, roads were often cut directly into the rock, built on massive stone embankments and terraces that prevented soil erosion and landslides, and stabilized the slopes to prevent disaster. Some sections featured elaborate stone-cut or perfectly fitted stone block staircases that were specially designed to overcome steep climbs, or impressive suspension bridges woven from strong plant fibers, such as maguey, ichu, or agave. These bridges, some of which were up to 60 meters long and capable of supporting considerable loads, were among the longest suspension bridges of antiquity and were regularly maintained by dedicated teams of workers, ensuring their continued strength, safe passage for people and llamas, and preventing the organic material from rotting. In marshy and low-lying areas, special dams and embankments were built to keep the road above water, and in deserts, protective walls were erected against shifting sands and trees were planted to stabilize the soil and provide shade for travelers. These roads were part of a larger infrastructure that included bridges, tunnels, stairs, drainage systems, and even special signs to mark the routes. The Incas also developed a highly efficient and complex drainage system, with channels, pipes, and drains carefully designed for each section of the road to prevent the roads from being washed away by heavy rainfall and meltwater from the mountains. Different sections of the road were specially coated to suit the terrain. Some were perfectly fitted stone surfaces, especially near cities, ceremonial centers, and important crossroads. Others were carefully packed earth, sand, or gravel. Along the roads were rest and supply stations, called tambos, located every 20 or 30 kilometers, where couriers and travelers could rest, eat, and change llamas, and where supplies of food and weapons were stored for government officials and troops traveling along the road. To quickly communicate and transmit information along these roads, special messengers were used, chasqui, who ran in relays from tambo to tambo, transmitting oral messages, and quipu, knot writing, a complex system of recording information using knots on ropes used for accounting, statistics, and possibly for transmitting more complex information, such as laws or orders, over huge distances in an incredibly short time for that era, up to 240 kilometers per day, which is comparable to modern courier services. This system allowed the central government in Cusco to maintain control over vast territories and ensure stability. The social and economic importance of these roads was enormous. They facilitated cultural exchange between different regions of the empire, facilitated trade, ensured security, and expedited administrative control. The knowledge of how to build such roads was lost after the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. The conquistadors, although they used some sections of the roads, did not understand the complexity of the system and did not have the resources to maintain it in its original form. Many sections fell into disrepair, were destroyed, or were used for other purposes. Construction methods based on deep empirical knowledge of local conditions were transmitted orally and were lost with the death of the craftsman and the collapse of the Inca social structure. The lost Inca building techniques, especially in such a complex and variable mountainous terrain, without the use of modern technology and heavy machinery, could offer valuable lessons for modern road construction in remote and seismically prone areas, as well as for the creation of sustainable and environmentally friendly infrastructure adapted to local natural conditions and capable of withstanding the tests of time and climate change. The destruction of this system by the Spanish conquistadors was one of the reasons for the rapid fall of the Inca Empire, and its restoration remains a huge archaeological and engineering challenge. Many sections of the Inca roads are still used by locals today, which is the best proof of their durability and functionality. And lastly, there was the Antikythera mechanism, perhaps one of the most stunning, inexplicable, and truly anomalous archaeological discoveries, which has radically changed our understanding of the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. This amazing ancient Greek artifact was discovered by sponge divers on a sunken Roman ship from the 1st century BC off the coast of the small Greek island of Antikythera in the Aegean Sea. The mechanism, dating from around to BC, is considered not just a clock or an astronomical device, but the first ever analog computer, or at least an incredibly complex astronomical calculator. Its existence has overturned many established theories about the linear development of science and technology in antiquity, showing that the ancient Greeks possessed knowledge that was previously thought to have appeared only 1,000 or even 1,500 years later. This discovery has literally turned our understanding of ancient engineering and science upside down, forcing scientists to reconsider the chronology of technological progress and admit that the level of development of some technologies in antiquity was incomparably higher than previously assumed. It is one of the most striking examples of the lost high technologies of antiquity. Originally found in a number of badly corroded fragments, 82 pieces in all, 30 of which were large, the mechanism was a compact device, probably originally about the size of a shoebox, about 33 centimeters high, 18 centimeters wide, and 9 centimeters thick, made of bronze. It consisted of an extremely complex system of at least 30 and according to some reconstructions, possibly up to 72 precisely fitted gears, differential gears, axles and dials, enclosed in a wooden case with 2 opening doors, on the inside of which were inscribed astronomical and calendrical inscriptions containing instructions for its use and general information about astronomy. Detailed studies of the mechanism fragments using advanced X-ray techniques, including high-resolution CT scanning with demodeling, and sophisticated mathematical modeling in recent decades, especially by the Antikythera Mechanism Project, led by Cardiff University, the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, and a number of international researchers, have revealed that its internal workings were astonishingly complex, requiring a profound knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, especially geometry and trigonometry, kinematics, and precision mechanics. The mechanism was driven by a hand crank or handle on the side, and its complex gearing allowed it to model the movements of celestial bodies with incredible accuracy. It was used to predict and display astronomical events. It could track and predict the positions of the Sun, Moon, and 5 planets known in antiquity: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, with amazing accuracy for that time, show the phases of the Moon, predict solar and lunar eclipses, taking into account their characteristics, time, duration, visibility from different places, and also determine the dates of such important events as the 4-year cycles of the Olympic Games, the Pythian, Nemean, and Isthmian Games, the Penellic calendar, which was extremely important for Greek culture, religious life, and political stability. Some researchers even suggest that it could predict the movement of comets, or calculate the time of rising and setting of stars, and also have astrological functions. The precision, complexity, and functionality of this mechanism amaze even modern engineers and astronomers. As other gears simulated anomalies in the Moon's motion, including its elliptical orbit, the first such mechanism, and the precession of the equinoxes, demonstrating the ancient Greeks' understanding of not just simple, but also complex, irregular celestial motions predating the models of Ptolemy and even Copernicus by years. The front dial featured the Greek zodiac, the Egyptian calendar, and a spiral with eclipse markings. The back dials displayed eclipse cycles and the Olympic calendar, allowing for the advanced planning of sporting and religious events. The inscriptions on the mechanism contain some arc symbols revealing details of its operation and astronomical terms such as the Saros spiral and the Metonic cycle. Its level of technical execution was so high that it had no analogues for more than 1,000 years after its creation, until the appearance of the first complex mechanical clocks and astronomical instruments in medieval Europe, and then in the Renaissance. The discovery of this mechanism completely destroyed the myth that complex gear mechanics and precision instrumentation appeared only in the late Middle Ages or the New Age. Who created it is not exactly known, but many researchers associate it with great Greek scientists such as Archimedes, who lived a century earlier, but his works on mechanics and mathematics could have influenced it. Posidonius of Apamea, a Stoic and astronomer, head of the Athenian Academy, or Hipparchus, a great astronomer known for his star catalogues and calculations, who lived around the same time. It may have been the work of a whole school of scientists and engineers, rather than a single genius, indicating the existence of an advanced engineering school and workshops for producing such complex devices. The reasons for the loss of such knowledge are still unclear. It could have been social upheavals. For example, the Roman conquest of Greece, which led to the decline of the scientific and cultural center, the decline of scientific interest after the Hellenistic period, the destruction of knowledge centers, for example the Library of Alexandria, which stored a huge number of scientific works, the lack of need for mass production of such complex devices, or simply their high cost, making them available only to a narrow circle of elites and preventing the wide dissemination of knowledge. Perhaps it was a one-off prototype rather than a mass-produced product. The ability of the ancient Greeks to create such precise and complex devices and then lose the knowledge for so long until similar mechanisms reappeared in Europe in the 14th century, when the first astronomical clocks were built in cathedrals, remains one of the great mysteries of the history of technology. If this knowledge had not been lost and had continued to develop, perhaps the technological revolution would have happened several centuries earlier, changing the entire course of human history and accelerating our path to modern computing, robotics, space exploration, and the development of precision mechanics, opening new horizons for civilization. This could have changed not only science, but also philosophy, since the ability to predict celestial phenomena would have had a huge impact on people's worldview. These 5 examples are just a small part of the amazing technological marvels that have been created and then irretrievably forgotten by humanity over the centuries. They are a vivid reminder that the history of technology does not always follow a straight, steady, ascending line. Sometimes knowledge and skills are lost, sunk into oblivion by wars, catastrophes, social upheavals, epidemics, climate change, or simply due to a lack of adequate transmission from generation to generation. Whether due to the loss of written sources, the destruction of workshops, or the fading of oral crafts. And then, hundreds or thousands of years later, they are rediscovered or become a thing of the past. A testament to past glory, unsolved mysteries, and the infinite, almost mystical potential of the human mind. Studying these forgotten technologies not only inspires us to discover more, but also makes us reflect on how much we can still learn from our ancestors, how much valuable experience and wisdom has been lost, and how fragile knowledge can be if it is not valued, preserved, and passed on with due diligence and care. Perhaps these ancient secrets hold the keys to our own future challenges, and understanding the past can help us build a more sustainable, wiser, and more prosperous future for all of humanity.